Greetings, my name's Rich, and this is Classic Games Redefined. And now we're going to ask the question, why Puerto Rico? This is a game that ended up on the top of popular lists. Highest ranked game on Board Game Geek. It still hovers around there, probably top 5 now, but even if it wasn't there, this is probably my favorite game now. I did a prior video on Cosmic Encounter, which I still like and will play. This one has more strategy to it. But the question I'm going to ask here is, why Puerto Rico? Well, the neat thing about Puerto Rico, and I'm going to go through a list of the reasons here, but let me go a little bit back. Let me go to the story of this. Your settlers, your rich aristocrats settling in. You have a plantation okay, that you build, and you can also build in your town up here. So down here you have your plantation, you get tiles, you bring workers in. Let's see if I can grab any. These are representing workers. They're usually brown, but the black here, might as well use ghost stones. And you would put them on buildings here, or down here. And by having a combination of these and these, you would produce these goods here. And you produce these goods here that you either can trade in. Let's see if we can find the trader place here. There's actually a ship. There's also, let me see if I can find the marketplace. I'm not seeing it here. Oh, here's the marketplace. So this is the trading post marketplace. You could trade to get money to buy these buildings that give you advantages, or you can ship them to get victory points. Most victory points wins. These buildings that you build that give you modifiers allow you to change the way the game plays, and you get advantages, and you can do it that way. So the joke is, based upon the number of slots that are open here, it will cause more work to come to the island, and you could send them down there. But anyhow, that's kind of a little bit of viciousness. So anyhow, you have money. You get money. You start off with so many, and then you start off with a plantation tile. There's different plantations around here, and then they produce these goods. So you either start off with corn or indigo. But that's the overflow, and it might seem a little bit boring, but there's cool things that happen in this game here. I'm going to go through this here. The big thing that Puerto Rico was one of the first to actually do, you pick it up, is the variable phases. You have stages in a game where you can do things. Well, in Puerto Rico, and introduced it, is that, well, the start player, who's the governor, would then pick one of these rolls. They get an advantage on the roll here, on the bottom. They get an extra bonus, whether it's like they get more if they trade goods in to get more money. They get an extra good they produce there. They also reduce one to the cost of these buildings. And they do things like the prospector, you get money. And what you do is you get those items and you build, and this directs the flow of the game. So by having, let's say you have the craftsman, which produces, if you do it before captain, you'll have goods that go on the ship. And by the way, these ships here will lead to, depending on the number of players, you have different types here. Well, this variable phases, based upon when players come in, and it's going to run clockwise, I believe. And what you do here is, by doing that, it leads to an interesting butterfly effect. It could totally throw your game off if you miscalculate when guys are going to do things. And what it was is that some rolls also, by the way, might end up not be taken. Let's say the mayor didn't take it. And let's Control C. So what we'll do is, at the end of the round, is in all the rolls that weren't taken, you would put money on. And you would get that money in addition to that. So that's another cool feature, that the game has a balancing mechanism, and you may not want to take a roll, but there's so much money on it. So many of these doubloons. And by the way, this is the tabletop simulator version. The actual game would have slightly different graphics. I believe this is probably the new board, what they did here. And you have an interesting butterfly effect with that. You also have, besides the stages, you have variable paths. The two main ones are, do I build, get the buildings, and they're worth their victory points, and get certain buildings also that give you modifiers, like you score more victory points for a certain type, Or do I do the buildings? Or do I ship for victory points? So you build, another thing is with that, the pretty much what we have here, the variable paths, you have it, is that you have that one, but then you can decide what to ship. One strategy it is, I'm going to make coffee and have an exclusive coffee put in there and get a bunch of money. And to get the small and large marketplace, get bonuses or do other shipping. And there's a number of things you can do in it, which really is cool. And that, those variable paths also lead to another thing related to that and how you build your engine. And that's what I'm saying, your engine. How do you build your economic engine to do this? There are different ways to do that. You can get goods that you sell in. You can also get a customs house. Normally, you can do things like get a customs house and produce a lot of things and sell in here. Normally, you're only allowed one of each item in a space, but if you get a customs house, you break that rule. So a little bit like what you have in Cosmic Encounter, each of those break the rules. So you have that there. I'm going to go to the next one here with this here. So with that there, your building engine, which is very rewarding, but it goes off. You start doing it when the players do things. You get that triggered right. You're getting something happening all the time. So you're planning. The downtime's minimal. This is a 3 to 5 player game. There's 2 players. It handles that well, and it scales up well. Because the more players you have in a game, 3 players, you normally don't play with the prospectors. And if you had 4 players, you had 1 and 5 players, 2. So, you have that. So, again, you have that with building the engine. And then not to direct competition. You're not attacking people. This is like Risk or a war game where I go across and destroy buildings. But, there's the butterfly effect, I said. By the role you pick, you impact everybody else in the game. So, it's kind of like an event. So, there's not that degree of nastiness, although it can get vicious. It's not like that there. And again, you have the minimal downtime because it's, I do this, then you do it. You get a chance to think, and you're limiting what you're doing. It's like you're doing one thing when somebody does it. You'll typically know what it was, saying, oh, the plantations are here. Let me grab that. And what else do we have here? So that's that minimum downtime. Oh, and the fun of grabbing stuff, particularly the money. When money's sitting on here, you go, I will grab a bunch of it. And also when you're producing goods, you'll get, oh, I have my thing, I get like, 2 corn and 3 indigo, etc. Another thing that happens here, talking about butterfly effect, let me come back to that for a second, is that there's only a limited number of these cubes. And they actually look like more barrel-shaped in the actual game, but this is here. And what you're doing is that this could run out. So you have a butterfly effect. You're expecting to get a shipment in, and what somebody does is they will totally lock it off or tie up a ship so you can't ship it in there. And then the one thing is they could do a nasty tactic where somebody will produce, you get the thing here, and then somebody ships it. You wanted to sell in a marketplace, but they force you to put it on a ship. So pretty much to sum up the cool features we have here, you get the variable stages, which leads to surprise and the butterfly effect. You have multiple paths you can pick. Some games have more, but it's manageable. You get to build stuff down here. You get to build your approach to the game. It stays there, and it stays. And there's not direct competition also. Here's another thing. There's not a direct competition to it. So, you end up doing things, but you can impact other players in the game indirectly. And then there's also the fun of grabbing stuff, particularly when, you have something like this here. Let me go across, and I'm going to go. You have something like this. You want to do something else. This is the prospector sitting with 6 gold. Wow, that is like, I will take that, please, thank you. And then you grab them all. Grab all the money off. But, let's try this. I think it'll pick up. So we'll pick up the card. I'll do something else like this here. Uh-oh. It picked up the card, anyhow. So let's back up. But anyhow, you get a lot of money on that. And you go, oh, I'm going to get that. And then it allows you to build these big victory point buildings at the end. And that could be a point swing also. Let's scroll over here. I'm just going to show these. These are bonus one typically in play. You get victory points for, like, the residents. These island spaces, if you get the workers, which are black ghost stones here, on that space, you get victory points. They're brown discs in the other game. And then you get victory points. So, there's a lot of good stuff here. I would recommend checking out. There's Brett's Be a Will to Play, and I'll post a link below. for where this is. So on the Board Game Geek site, you look over. It's not a taste for everybody else, but I highly recommend it if you haven't. If you're looking for an economic game that plays well, this is it. So, okay. You know what? We're done here. Let me zoom out of the board so you can view everything. Just give me a few seconds. I'm going to zoom out. And this is a table playing the games. So you see, you can go up to 5 players. So anyhow, that's it. I do want to thank you for watching, and may your die. Hey.